Lynn, welcome to our video book club. It's a real pleasure to have you here tonight, and I can't wait to talk about you're our first Christmas book of
Ah,
2024.
thank you for the
No, I
invitation.
lied. We had another one, but we're not going to count that one. You are our first one in the season of 2024.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And
Thank you very much.
you're very welcome because this is really truly a pleasure. Because talking about holiday Christmas setting books is something that a lot of people really look forward to. It gets you in the mood. If your life is not like conducive to this, you can get lost in fiction and you can go to a really happy place. Unless, of course, it's a murder, and then, of course, if you like murders, it could be a happy place too, right? Okay, yeah. There's something special, I think, about Christmas and holiday fiction. And to get this whole thing started, Lynn, why don't you tell us about your writing journey, how you got to where you are now?
Wow. I started writing about 40 years ago because I like to read books, but I wasn't always happy with the way they were going. I like a book that makes me laugh at some point in it. Doesn't have to be humorous all the way through, but just something that makes me smile. I like a book that makes me cry. It's fun to cry at a good book, right? And I like a book that makes me think so that when I finish reading it, I'm like, for a couple of days, the characters are still in my mind and all of that. So I just decided to sit down one day and try to write the kind of book that I like to read. I've always loved to read. And I discovered when I did that it was so much fun. It was like being a kid again and using my imagination and playing. And so I thought I really want to keep doing this. But it took me 11 years from the time I first sat down and started playing around writing until my first book was published. It was quite a long journey. But I've been writing ever since, and I've got 30 novels and two nonfiction books. And this is my newest one, Waiting for Christmas.
Yeah. And now this for everybody to know that this one is set in the Gilded Age in the United States. So that is a interesting setting. It's not a Hallmark setting. And it's not like Regency or Victorian, but I think that American set novels are gaining speed, at least here in the United States. So tell us why you said it then.
I just love that time period. I love the gowns and the mansions and all of that. And as I was researching the whole Gilded Age, I found out it was really a time of contrasts. You had a lot of immigrants coming over from other countries, and they started off very poor in the tenements. It takes place in New York City. And I just liked the contrast between the two. But I'm a big Downton Abbey fan. And so just that whole era with the dresses and the sumptuous meals and the balls and the men especially dressed up in tuxedos, I just find that a lot of fun.
Okay. And are you a fan of the Gilded? Is it called Gilded Age? Whatever the series is on,
The
I think it's
series.
HBO.
I haven't watched it because it came out just as I was researching this book and the one before it. And I knew we'd be drawing on the same research material. And so I thought I'm not going to watch it because if I happen to have something that's the same as the series, then I get accused of copying it. So I haven't seen it yet. Is it good? I'd be interested to know what people think of it.
I know that when it first came out, it was something that we talked about here at the book club a lot because people were waiting for the different. I think up to season four, maybe season three. Yeah,
Mhm.
yes, it's great. They're like saying, yes, it's great, and it has a lot of different characters from all of the different social stratas too. So
Ah,
that would
okay.
make it interesting as well. So when you were doing your research for it, what was something that you found that they did that surprised you?
Among the wealthy, I was surprised about the arranged marriages because this book takes place in like 1899, 1901, somewhere along there. And there, Consuela Vanderbilt was 19 years old, and she had fallen in love with a young man from her social class. Her parents were Vanderbilts. They were among the richest in America. And they had fallen in love and everything. But the parents, her mother especially, said, nope, She wanted her to marry royalty in England. If you remember from Downton Abbey, that was one of the things is that Cora, the mother, was an American heiress, and they wanted this influx of money in Britain. So it became very fashionable for upper class women in America to marry royalty in Britain. They thought that was great. So this poor 19-year-old Consuelo Vanderbilt had to marry, follow her parents' wishes. And in spite of the fact that she married, that she was in love with someone, he was in love with her. So that really surprised me. That was still going on in America. In at the same time, we had women trying to get the vote, suffrage movement was there. And it shocked me that these poor girls couldn't do what they wanted to do.
She had a very unhappy marriage. Her whole life
She
was
did, and I
not a
think they
happy
ended up
thing.
divorced. Yeah, no,
He was a
yeah,
rotten, crappy guy if you read the history of him. He was not a nice person. Yeah. That's a sad thing. And they had suffrage over in England before even it had here in the United States. So it's
right.
not, it's a period of time of change, of great wealth and great poverty. And hopefully we don't go into that kind of period.
Talk about
Um,
that.
but it's just interesting. And but there's different kinds of stories. Was there any kind of, because I'm going to talk about your research for this, because I find the Gilded Age fascinating and also appalling at the same time in when I
Yeah.
read the history and things. But for the fascinating things, what I loved reading about, and I don't know if you've included this, is the sumptuous meals and
Yeah.
food displays that they did. So tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about that. What did you discover? What did you uncover? And that you may not have been able to put in the book because that would be too much detail or something like that.
There was almost a competition among the upper class, especially in New York City, to outdo each other with the just conspicuous consumption and these balls and parties. It would be common to spend like $100,000. Now, in 1900 or 1899, $100,000 was a lot of money. They'd spend that much like on one party, one ball. And this is at a time when the poor are like there's children living in the streets. The poor are so poor. And yeah, the one matron, Astor, I think it was one of the Astors, she would limit her parties and balls to 500 people. That was average size for one of these balls. And everybody wanted to be on her list. So there was this great competition. And there was American royalty, like especially the ancestors or the descendants of the Dutch who had settled New York. That was like the aristocracy. And then there was all this new money, all these tycoons who were making new money, and they wanted their wives and their daughters to be part of this aristocracy. So there was all this competition to come to one of, I think her name was Mary Astor's grand balls. But yeah, 500 people was just average. This is a Christmas party, right?
Yeah. So what kind of food or whatever did they do?
Oh,
Was
just
there any kind of like weird cake or weird food that they served that you went, wow, that's different?
they were really into like stuff that I don't think we eat anymore, like quail and just I don't know what to say,
Yeah.
just really stuff. But the spread would just be astronomical. And they'd have, if there was a sit down dinner, which was maybe 50, 100 people could sit down in your dining room, it would be 7, 8 courses and appetizers and soup and just all this. Like you can't possibly eat that much food, can you?
No, not unless you want to be sick.
No.
So I was wondering, no, I don't think so. I was just like, I thought, I'm not sure, but I thought that I read somewhere that it was Mary Astor or one of the Nova Riche ones that were trying to do it. They actually had live fish as like a centerpiece or something.
I
And
wouldn't doubt it.
I was trying to imagine that, and I was just like, I hope they didn't serve fish too. It's
Make you lose your appetite. Yeah, there was always a fish course, a soup course, a fish course, fruit and cheese. It just went on and on. And the silverware, you'd see these place settings, and you had to use the right fork and the right knife. That comes up in this story here because this gentleman is invited to one of these elaborate parties, and there's all these forks and spoons and everything, and he's just lost. And so the young lady who becomes his wife just says, start on the outside and work your way in and just look to see what everyone else is doing. But yeah, just the wine and the food was extravagant. And the centerpieces, like hundreds of thousands of dollars on flowers, fresh flowers in New York, just like in the grand entryway of the mansion, and then centerpieces on the table. And like, where do you get fresh flowers in 1899? You can't fly them in,
No. So
just.
where did they get them? Was that part of your, because to me, if I was starting to research that, I'm like, okay, where did they get that? There was a whole, must
I
have been a
never did
business.
find out. I think they probably came by train, maybe from down south somewhere, Florida, or greenhouses, might be
They
greenhouse
had
flowers.
greenhouses. Yeah.
And a lot of these elaborate mansions had a greenhouse as part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The main character in the Christmas book grew up in a 75 room mansion.
Oh, just a small house.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So more important, out of the 75 rooms, how many bathrooms did they actually have? Do not tell me they had outhouses because that would just ruin the whole
No,
romance for me.
not in the mansion. No, they had indoor plumbing by then. Yeah. Yeah. Baths, hot bath.
I hope that they had indoor plumbing.
They did, especially the wealthy.
Yes.
Now you talk about the tenements and how the other half lived, where it's a whole different ballgame. Yeah,
Yes. I know.
disgusting.
One of the things that I did when I went to visit New York City one time is I did go through the Tenement Museum. Have you
I
ever,
did too. Yes, I did. Yeah,
it wasn't that fascinating?
it was. I enjoyed it very much. If I ever get back, I'd like to go again because it was. I took a lot of pictures and notes and books and stuff. That's my favorite way to research is to just go to a place like that's like a living museum where it
Mhm.
shows you what it actually is like, and to go to the setting where the book takes place. I did tour several big mansions for the Christmas book in various places, but yeah, just to get the feel of it all. But in the Christmas book, she's married and she married a commoner. He was middle class, he's not poor. And so this is their first Christmas together, and they're trying to adjust to she's used to everything and she wants so badly to be a wife and she doesn't even have a clue how to make tea or toast, and he loves her so much he wants to give her everything she had growing up, but he can't because he's just middle class living. So it's interesting, they've been married I think about a month and a half when the book starts, and trying to get it's hard enough the adjustments of newlywed life, but when you come from such different backgrounds it's a challenge.
It does work out in the end, I am sure, because it's a romance. So that's,
I guess it doesn't really count as a romance because they're already married. I think in a
well,
romance you have, but it is romantic. Yes.
it's romantic, but there's happy, you don't think that they go through all this and get divorced or separated. So to me, that's, they're still having a
No,
happy ever
it's
after.
Christmas.
It's
And there is
Christmas.
snow for all you who like snow. There is snow.
Yes. So that in New York, it would be nice. Usually they do have snow, or if they don't, they complain mightily about it, and the rest of the country gets to hear about that at Christmas, you know. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I know that we did not
Oh,
always have snow at Christmas. We always had the chance of snow at Christmas, but it's
yeah.
pretty close to there. So when you were doing research, and you did the Tenement Museum, which is a living museum in New York City, and I do suggest that anybody gets a chance to do that, goes down and visits that because it's a really eye-opening experience. What was your favorite mansion or whatever that you went and visited for research, and what was something that you still remember that really stood out, that you were like, I hope that I can put this in a book, or I this provided a background for you.
The favorite one most recently is the Hackley Hume Mansion in Muskegon. I'm from Michigan, and so this
Mhm.
was nearby. And this was a mansion. At one time, Michigan was covered with lumber, and they cut all the trees down and shipped all the lumber to build Chicago. And so these people were millionaires, and this was one of his mansions. And the thing I loved about it was the woodwork. I mean, you got wood, right? This is
Yeah.
what the guy does for a living is wood, but it's this oak woodwork all throughout and just elaborate and carving. And he's hidden little animals and figures everywhere. He's got like the four seasons. He's got It's almost like a treasure hunt or a Easter egg hunt to go through this mansion and see all the hidden features. You could tell whoever designed it had a lot of fun with it, but just the richness of the woodwork was just amazing. Amazing.
Okay. So out of the 30 some books that you've written, how many of them are actually like Christmas stories, or is this one of your first ones?
This is my second.
Okay.
I wrote one, I think it came out last Christmas, maybe. I don't remember. Time just blurs. It was either last Christmas or the Christmas before. And yeah, so that was my first Christmas novella. I've always wanted to write a Christmas novella. And the publisher I was working with for a lot of years didn't want any Christmas novellas. They said it's just such a short shelf life. And then what do you do with them? They sit in a warehouse somewhere. So when my current publisher said, have you ever thought about a Christmas novella? I said, yes, please. I would love to write a Christmas novella. The other one I wrote before this is called The Christmas Wish Book.
Mhm.
I'm old enough that when I grew up, the big thing was the Sears Wish Book. You'd get a catalog and it had all the toys and everything in it. And we'd sit there and circle everything we wanted to buy and dream of what we were going to have. And I found out that the Wish Book, Sears Wish Book, is online. You can look at them, you can pick the year and see what toys were popular then. And the prices are just like it's so funny. You get Lincoln Logs, it'd be like $1.50 for the thing of Lincoln Logs. But it brought back a lot of memories, the Wish books. That's a story of two single moms and their two little boys. And of course, the little boys want everything in the Wish book. That's fun.
I grew up with girls, and we used the wish book to make paper dolls. We would cut
Mm.
out all of the, and then you would match the clothes that would actually fit on your little figures.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was, we were never, my parents never bought paper dolls for us. We got to use the Christmas catalogs.
That's nice.
And we
Very
would collect
creative.
them from
Yeah,
everybody, like from grandmas and everybody else, because we were all girls and they had boys and they didn't care about that. And after they picked out their log cabins or whatever they wanted, that was to
sure.
us, it was like that would get us through the winter of
Mhm.
you could trade. Oh, that will dress will fit there. That was a great memory thing.
Sounds very
Um,
creative. Yeah.
yeah, when you grow up in the country, sometimes you have to be creative. So it's just like that. Okay, so it's time now to move into the fresh fiction facts, which is where I ask you questions and you try to answer them as quickly as possible without too much thought
Oh boy.
involved with it. But because your book is set at Christmas and it's historical and everything else, I'm going to try to center these holiday-ish. So, what is your favorite Christmas cookie?
It's called a Jan Hagel. It's a Dutch cookie. It's basically shortbread with almond topping. My husband is half Dutch, and I live in Holland, Michigan. And I learned to make Jan Hagels. They're very good.
Yeah. Do you make them yourself or do you buy them?
I do. I make them. Yeah. They've got cinnamon and vanilla and then toasted almond and almond extract. So it's this almondy flavor. They're very good.
Yeah, they
Shortbread. I
sound.
love shortbread too. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is the favorite Christmas dish that you like to make, but it's that you like to have, but it's so hard that you don't get it very often?
Our Christmas family tradition is something called Sauerbraten, which is German. I come from a
Mhm.
German background. And it's you take beef and you soak it in pickling spices and vinegar and onions, and you have to soak it for 5 days. And then you roast it. So it has like a pickling flavor all through it. And then the gravy is made with crushed ginger snaps. So there's like this gingery gravy. It's a complicated thing to make. So I only do it probably once a year, which is at Christmas. And that's become our family tradition to have sauerbraten. And then you have to have spätzle with it, which is
Uh-huh.
like German noodles and red cabbage. And yeah, so yeah, it's the family loves it. I love it, but yeah, I'm not making it every day because it's
Yeah.
complicated.
Yeah, because it does take 5 or 6 days to soak it. I know, because
Yeah, you have to plan ahead.
yes, you have to plan ahead. And they would only make it in the wintertime because from a German background, and some of our
Yeah.
cooking in Lancaster, Pennsylvania is like that. So you would never get sauerbraten in the middle of the summer. That would just not
No.
happen.
I think
Oh,
it's probably traditional with venison to take away some of the gamey flavor of the
yeah,
venison by soaking it. But no, I don't do venison.
yeah. Darla's father apparently has two deer, two venisons.
There you go.
Maybe he'll
Make
make
sauerbraten.
maybe, yeah, maybe they'll have that. It's such a waste when they make venison jerky. You're just like, why are you doing that? Okay. Just like, all right, cool. All right then. Okay, so when do you start to decorate for the holidays? Are you before
After thanks,
Thanksgiving? After
no, I'm
Thanksgiving?
after because my house isn't that big. And if I have family over and everything's in the way, but I do after Thanksgiving. And my birthday is in early December. So I like to have it looking like Christmas by my birthday.
Okay. And do you have to bring everything down right after Christmas, or do you wait until 12th night?
I wait till I have time. I usually do it a little bit at a time, but then everything looks so bare. So I leave it up as long as I possibly can because,
Okay.
yeah, it just looks so empty.
I think that the new thing is to leave it up until Valentine's Day, which I'm like, you're supposed to leave it up all year.
That might be a little too long.
Well, yeah, it's just, I haven't taken mine down from last year, so now I'm all ready. I just
There you
don't
go.
plug in the lights, so it's like ready to go.
That's really planning ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to look at it. It's not, as long as the lights aren't on, I think it's a pretty tree in the
Yeah.
corner of my dining room. I'm happy with that. It doesn't get dust that way because it gets dusted
Yeah.
off with the cleaning lady. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So, okay. Is there anything special in your decorations that you bring out that have a special meaning for you?
I have not all of them, but I have a lot of the decorations that my kids made growing up and in school that they brought home, little Christmas trees. And my kids are grown adults now. So some of these Christmas things, other people might think they're tacky, but I really love them. So I always get them out. And then there's a little manger scene that I bought when my kids were little, and it's not expensive at all. It's just cheap plaster. But my thinking was then they could play with it. They could move the shepherds and the angels and all that around, and it wouldn't be any big catastrophe if it got broken. And that's looking a little tattered now, but I still get that out. And that way now my grandchildren can play with it and move the little figures around. And so that has to come out every year. Anybody else, a decorator, would come in and going, what? What's this tacky little thing here? But it has a lot of great memories.
Yeah. So speaking of decorators, are you a person like I do my own? I would never hire a Christmas decorator because they do that.
I I love doing it. I read all the magazines and I see every year how these other houses are decorated and I get ideas for that and try different things. And no, I love doing it. That's like a hobby of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there something like every year you add something to it so that it's different or no?
I have a mantle. I have a huge fireplace in right in my living room, stone fireplace and a mantle. And I try to play around with that every year and do that a little bit different every year. And then the centerpiece in my dining room. And I have a dining room table that just keeps expanding. You just keep adding leaves and it'll seat probably 14, 15 people. And so I play around with that centerpiece every year to do something a little different. Go to the craft stores and buy little trees or something.
So do you watch the YouTube videos on how to make like centerpieces and things like that?
Sometimes, but yeah, I just like to look at, copy what other people are doing. Yeah, yeah.
That's why I find fascinating about the YouTube videos. I have been stuck on them where they're taking these pipes and then they use zip ties and then they're sticking things in it and then when it's all done you go, wow, okay, so it's here's how you do it for those of us who just are not crafty. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I,
I like making them up myself. And I watch them and sometimes I think, oh, I can't do that. They're
yeah,
so complicated.
yeah. But it's a fascinating story there. Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Because we want to be able to keep in touch with you, to close our interview, is that where is a place that people can find you and to stay in touch and to learn about your next book?
Okay. My website, which is lynaustin.org, www.lynaustin.org. And if when you go on there, it has all the information, but it also, there's a place you can sign up for my newsletter. And I just do one newsletter a month. And I just have a little bit, I try to keep it short so people aren't reading a lot. What I'm working on, something I'm working on, something I'm doing for fun, so they can find out what's new. Also, like sales, if they're having a sale on some of my books, where they can buy them.
Okay. And are you on any social medias or no?
I am. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I think that's it.
Okay, Lynn, thank you so much for coming and talking with us tonight. And
My
I'm
pleasure.
glad, and I know that you can stick around for a few more minutes so that people can ask you questions. But I want to thank you
Okay.
for being here.
My pleasure. Anytime.